Hello. There we go. Welcome to a playtest of Girl by Moonlight in a Maze of Dreams. Uh, I'm Andrew. My pronouns are they and them. I'm the person who wrote this game, and I'll be the director, the person kind of facilitating the whole experience. With me are Jory.
Hello, I'm Jory. My pronouns are she or they. I'm based in Austin, Texas, formerly Portland, Oregon. Last game I was streaming was Scum and Villainy with Strash, and I'm really excited to be streaming a game again.
Yeah, thanks for joining me here. We've also got Jess over here.
Hi, yes, that's me. I go by Burst of Hope on Twitter. I use they, them pronouns, and it's super exciting to be here. People keep asking me to play a game, and I'm like, how do I say no? I don't want to say no. There's so many games to play. So I've gotten to read this playtest wise, and now I get to play it. Yes, I'm feeling magical.
Well, great. And above me is Morgan.
Hi, I'm Morgan. I go by both they them pronouns and she her pronouns. I'm also from Austin, Texas. So howdy y'all. and shoot. Yeah, I'm excited to be a magical schoolgirl because who doesn't want that? Get tight.
True.
All right. Well, great. So we are going to be playing a playset of Girl by Moonlight called In a Maze of Dreams, which is the weirdest one, I guess. It is inspired by things like the movie Paprika or the anime Serial Experiments Lane, also the Persona series of video games. So it's about dream travelers unraveling a magical conspiracy that has some nefarious goals that it is trying to undertake. It's kind of about like mass culture and how that influences individuals or affects individuals and the ways in which we both can and can't contend with and kind of fight against those kinds of pressures. And so today we're doing our first session. We're going to go through. Here, let me pull everyone over to the right page here. So there's a big list of, or big series of lists that we'll be picking from, and these things are going to define the antagonism. So we're going to talk about the conspiracy, what it is trying to do, and like the people that it is acting through. We're going to talk about the world. So there's the idea of like in this one, the waking world and the dream, and things that kind of shape and give them form. And then we'll talk about the characters, kind of at a high level as a group. We'll talk about why the characters kind of are these people who go into other people's dreams. We'll talk about the individual roles each protagonist is going to play within that group. And then we'll define some of the details about the dream, the characters' avatars, which are these kinds of scary self-expression, but also like the aspirational or kind of frightening high-pressure version of your own self that you might, either aspire to or be afraid of or be coming to grips with. And then we'll also talk about kind of the overall goals, or like what the characters hope to accomplish and what they fear will happen if the conspiracy gets its way. So we can start with our first couple of questions here. I will just read from the list, but also y'all are welcome to point things out, underline them, etc. I like to use the little freehand tool in Roll20 and like underline or circle things that I find exciting. So feel free to do so. And I'm just going to read the list out loud, and then we can kind of talk about it, pick one, and then move on. We can talk about like what they mean, or we can leave them a little bit open-ended. It doesn't especially matter straight away. If it's like, oh yeah, I'm really excited about this one, and I think like this thing or this thing is cool, that's great. Or it can just be that we're all like, oh yeah, it's an ideology turned virus. Moving on. That's fine too. We can figure some of these out in play, and some of them we can talk about now and get into the nitty gritty of what they might mean. So, the conspiracy. What is the conspiracy? Our options are an ideology turned virus, a single dream that plagues the world, a toxic cultural movement, history haunting the present, or the pull of some alien mind.
Are any of those drawing towards you? Jory's like dancing
They're
around.
all very exciting.
Mm-hmm.
Andrew, are there any of these that you haven't played through that you would be particularly excited about exploring?
So like this playset in its entirety, I haven't gotten very much opportunity to play at all. I think I did one streamed playtest of it, and then a little bit of other kind of faffing about with it. But really, most of this is kind of unproven territory for me, so I'm pretty excited about any of these. And also, like, they all generally drive towards a lot of the same ideas, so, you know, any one that we pick could kind of end up, you know, as we detail it, going in very different directions, but still being about those same root ideas, so. I don't know. I mean, there's also the question of, like, how real or true to life do we want to be with this? Because a lot of this playset is my own kind of... I mean, I wrote this back in, like, 2017 or whatever, but it was a lot of, like, coming to terms with stuff that was going on at that time, and, you know, we all know how that's all played out. So, you know, if we want to really cleave close to real life and have our setting be kind of this, like, alternate reality in the more kind of direct sense, we could do that, or we can spin off. There's room for this to be even like a little bit cyberpunky or like near future, or have some magical realism vibes to it. So there's lots of room to fiddle about at this point, and I don't want to... I wrote it, so I don't know. I like them all. It's kind of ultimately the problem I have.
Yeah. I'm a little inclined to be a little less close to the reality because I deal with that all day.
Yeah, that's kind of how I'm feeling about it these days. I want to escape at least a little bit.
Yeah.
So, yeah, I was looking at toxic cultural movement and history haunting the present. I was like, ooh, those are your
Right?
favorite out of the front. But, yeah.
My persona heart is totally ready for a single dream that plagues the world.
Yeah, same. Maybe we should go there.
Cool.
I do like that.
And I don't know, like, is this where we kind of expound if we have ideas on like what kind of dream it is that's plaguing the world? Or...
Yeah, for sure. If there's something that excites you, let's go into it, right?
I was just asking a leading question. I didn't have an idea.
Well, that's fine too, right? We can just say, cool, there's a single dream that plagues the world, and we can bounce back to this, right, as we answer some of the next questions. It might be that this thing starts to crystallize. So
Stick.
I have played, I think the first playtest ever that I did of this game, it wasn't this playtest, it was a different one, but it was like me, John Harper, Elf, and Andy, and we got through this whole list picking thing within the course of like maybe like half an hour or something, because we were just like, it's this, moving on, it's this, moving on, because it was at a con, we had very little time, and it totally works fine, right? It's just a matter of when we fill in those details, whether it's now or during play. So let's move on to the next one. So the conspiracy has an impulse, and its impulse can be to reshape our dreams, to drive us to self-destruction, to make us shed our bodies, to shatter the barrier between waking and dreaming, to instill an alien morality in us, or to turn reality to farce. So we have this single dream that is plaguing the world, and this dream wants to, you know, accomplish something, or has some, I mean, to ascribe it that kind of agency is maybe inappropriate, but it is doing this thing.
I'm interested in both shattering the barrier between waking and dreaming and turning reality to farce. I feel like there's this possibility for this conspiracy to kind of be a dark shadow of something that we want, rather it was just kind of very different from like an ideology turned virus, where it could be very easily like, oh, it's evil. To be like, oh no, it's appealing because it gets at something that we actually want. I feel excited about that idea.
Right, this is like an inversion or twisting of a desirable thing, or maybe this like this outside thing interpreting our desires but not understanding them clearly and trying to give it to us but doing it wrong. Something like that.
Yeah.
Someone in chat said the exact same thing that I was thinking. So, reality to farce, as in like
Farts, yes.
yes.
Not farts.
That will be farce. Everything you know is a lie. That one.
I actually like the shattering one too. I kind of that's a very paprika feel to it. So
Yeah, that's definitely, like, if we were to describe Paprika using these prompts, that would be one of them for sure. This idea of like the dream world spilling over into the waking world, or those lines kind of breaking down.
Let's do it.
Does that work for you, Jess? Yeah. Okay.
Yeah. That's a very visceral option. Just shatter the barrier. I like it.
Yeah, as abstract as it is, it still also feels pretty clear and like comprehensible. Okay, so then who are its hosts? Who are the carriers of this this dream, and who are trying to enact this agenda of shattering the barrier between waking and dreaming? The options are a secret society, artists and luminaries, a cabal of sorcerers, and that can be like literally they are sorcerers, or it can, they don't have to be straight up actually doing magic, but they could be. An online gestalt, which is like a collective that kind of acts as one entity, a sentient dream, or ghosts and echoes. Maybe for the benefit of people on stream, I will zoom in a little more as well.
I enjoy the idea of the dream not being sentient. Like there is an external force causing the dream.
like the ghosts and the echoes, or are you talking about like the others other than that?
Ghost echoes, leaning towards artists and luminaries. Like I could very much see creatives trying to drive, like, forcing your dreams to reality.
Yeah, and that they're kind of like inadvertently channeling or empowering this thing through their creative works.
That were tripping, that got too much power, and like eventually just pushed down to everybody else.
Do you have any thoughts,
I like
Tori?
artists and luminaries.
Okay, yeah, I think that's a cool angle to take here, that these people might be trying to do this for very, if not necessarily sensible, but like understandable reasons of like idealism and self-expression and stuff like that, but that we're
just trying to open our minds, man.
Yeah, that their creative acts are in some way breaching reality. I wish my creative acts could breach reality, honestly. That'd be pretty sick. So
we gotta expand the horizons
for everybody.
All right, so then the last question is, by what vector does it infect us? And so we have insular communities and coded language, hopes and desires, passions and conflict, fashion and ritual, consumption and excess, or a half-forgotten song. And so the idea is like, this is like the hook of this conspiracy, how it kind of insinuates itself into people's dreams, minds, etc.
Mm-hmm.
I'm feeling either hopes and desires or a half-forgotten song, because you are going with the artists and luminaries.
Right.
Maybe passions and conflicts. Ooh.
I like hopes and desires and passions and conflicts. Yeah, especially thinking of like what things work themselves into my dreams. They're usually things like hopes, desires, passions, conflicts, things that evoke some sort of intensity.
Mm-hmm.
Like, I don't know, does it hook in because you've had some sort of experience? Like, we're magical girls, so like if we have a crush on somebody and that crush is in our dream, does that somehow work its way?
Yeah, does it like become part of this larger thing?
It sounds like my nightmares.
Or yeah, that it uses your desire for someone as a way to get you into it. It's like, oh, well, yeah, if you want to be with that person, all you got to do is become part of our weird, creepy, cultish conspiracy. It's no problem. Then you get all the babes.
I mean, it's fair.
Sign me up.
So are we leading towards passions and conflicts, or like hopes and desires?
Yeah, where does our overlap kind of sit for that one, do you reckon? Because a
I
couple
feel
of
like
those
it's in
bubbled up.
desires and passions, so that's
Well, that's not on the list, Jory.
You can be passionate about your desires.
Ooh.
true.
Yeah, they are
passionate
kind
about
of.
your conflicts.
Right.
Yeah, I like that passions and conflicts in some ways like includes hopes and desires, and that it also you get polar experiences of intensity that both lead to this place.
Yeah, I feel like hopes and desires is the more idealistic reflection of that idea, and then passions and conflict would be the kind of negative spin. But whether or not this is what the conspiracy is pitching, it could be that it gets to people who are in conflict or who are like in that darker emotional state and offers them an out, or it could be through its seduction of your hopes that is pulling you in. I think either one is a totally suitable option here.
I like it.
Yeah. I think in terms of if the hosts are the artists and luminaries, artists tend to be driven by passion and conflicting feelings and things that they're trying to bring out in their art. So I'm about passions and conflict.
Okay, yeah, so we're leaning into more like, if we had to characterize this as an art movement, it's more expressionism than something like there's lots of like intensity and visceral art going around with this. That could definitely be fun.
Cool.
All right, so we can bump on to the next one, where we start talking about the waking world, which is to say like the kind of mundane world. The waking world belongs to everyone and no one. What defines the waking world? And here we can choose one or two, and our options are looming spires, the press of bodies, crisscrossing wires, media saturation, protests and riots, smog and haze. And so these are fairly aesthetic cues of like when I'm, describing a building, or when you're talking about like where does your character live. These are the tropes that we're going to lean on in terms of like, the press of bodies could mean that it's a very crowded city. You're always kind of bumping up against people. Crisscrossed by wires could be that kind of like, you see this a lot of like photos of cities in Southeast Asia where there's lots of like exposed wiring everywhere crisscrossing things. Or it could be that we're kind of a deeply internet connected, wires as metaphor kind of vibe of like, yeah, everyone is, deeply in their social media, etc. kind of mindset, and that the wires are a metaphor. These things are all suitable options. So if any of these feel evocative or striking, I think we should just run with them, and we can spin them out into an aesthetic.
I am curious if the artists are behind this dream darkness, or maybe not darkness, then maybe they feel constrained by our waking world. So like could be protests and riots, or we could lean closer to like media saturation.
Yeah, I think it seems like a pretty natural follow, right? That cool, we have these people offering this out to a world that is in some way kind of like choking or oppressive or...
Right.
I like the
So the
media
dreams.
saturation. Go ahead.
Yeah, the dreams will provide a counterpoint to whatever this choice is that we make.
Exactly.
So counterpoint to media saturation would be like nature.
Yeah, like pastoral
Silence.
scenes, silence, or
Right.
like relative, like isolation, or So, and Jory, you're absolutely picking up on one of the dualities in the setting or in this playset, which is that elements from the waking world will appear in the dream, but often the dream is like an escape from, or like there's a there's a relationship between those two things, and they exist in tension.
Hell yeah.
I kind of like smog and haze just because I feel like that becomes it's like static in terms of there not being much stimulation, and so that creates a world in the dreams where we can be like very bright, right? It makes the dreams more appealing if we're like bright and things going on, but real life is like hazy, smoggy.
Yeah,
but
like stagnant.
I keep having this image of like the movie Parasite, and like that also has the crossing wires and smog and haze, the kind of world that the poor family lived in. Where it's like, what is the escape from that?
Yeah, so let's definitely underline that. I think it's very fruitful as an option. And yeah, I like this idea of like smog and haze as representative of urban decay and the kind of like tedium of day-to-day life, that it's like this blanket that just browns out everything and makes everything very dull and a little bit foggy, like mentally as well as like literally.
Yeah, you're just seeing just what's in front of you. You're not seeing what, like, a long-term goal. So maybe people like feel like they're stuck.
Yeah, like it's like a swamp or whatever as well.
Do we want to do a second one, or I kind of do just because it helps. Like, I think to like add more, but
yeah, you had mentioned media saturation. Do we want to put that in as like the kind of alternative escapism? Because then we have kind of a conversation.
I think it could go, for sure, hand in hand. Like if you feel stagnant and hazy all the time, you've probably been stuck, saturated with media, and the dreams could potentially hook us out of there.
It's giving me very like a cyberpunk feel, but like the poor cyberpunk, like a Judge Dredd sort of situation. Or kind of like a high end, like you're one of the lower levels, but Reap of the Genetic Opera with all the media saturation of that show.
Yeah, we could do like a sort of near future vibe, like a little bit of a William Gibson-y kind of thing, where it's like the shitty future.
Yeah, shitty future. Love it.
Let's do it.
The uninspired, low budget corporate. Yeah. Great. So our next question is, what shapes our dreams? And again, we can choose one or two. And here the options are money, work, surveillance, possessions, edifices, status, sexuality, and conformity. So these are the things that shape our dreams. It's not necessarily like what our dreams are about, but this is like something that is at the root of, what we eventually end up dreaming about.
Big oof.
Yeah, it's not an upbeat playset. I'm sorry.
Yeah, Andrew did this whole thing on Twitter the other day about how this game is not fun, and I was like, all right, I'm ready.
That. Right? Yeah.
I didn't see it. Oh no, I was never prepared. Okay. I can cry on cue. This is gonna be great.
Yeah, I mean, it's not that we're not going to have a good time playing it. It's just that it's not like a place for high wheeling wish fulfillment and heroics. It's going to be about like feelings.
We're punching you close to home. That's fine. This is fine.
Yeah, this is okay. This is great. We're fine. This is good.
I mean, really, we're all the dog with the hat burning around. That's where all the smog and haze.
Did you know that you can get a plushie of that dog?
Yes.
I got one for a friend, and it was very good. And it came with like a smaller one. So it was the double. It was very, very good.
Epic.
And then I see the next question.
Yeah, so these kind of exist as a pair.
Some overlap here.
Yeah. Okay. So the next one is going to be, what do we hide from others? And the options for that are passion, emotions, gender, vulnerability, authenticity, sexuality again, intimacy, and dissatisfaction. And so these are kind of meant to be in conversation, these two options, about like the things that we hope for or dream about or that, push us to want an escape, and then the things that we kind of have to bury or choke down or can't talk about. And then later on there will be a section where we talk about how the protagonists kind of exist in opposition to both of those. So they both refuse to have their dreams be shaped about or shaped by the same stuff, and that they are open about these things that other people kind of hide or repress.
Okay, so real question then.
Mm-hmm.
Since we're all on the non-binary spectrum, how are we feeling in terms of anything related to that in this world?
I feel like not against it, but I'm also not excited about it.
Yeah.
I certainly don't want to like relive my real life traumas or struggles around it, or have it just be like, yeah, everyone's just constantly misgendering the characters or whatever. That I'm not interested in that.
Right. I'm just looking like, yeah.
But as like ways to explore the topic more broadly, yes, absolutely. I think we all clearly have thoughts or feelings on the subject, and it could be fun to play within it. Just at that like bit of a remove where it's not like my personal stuff, but it's just the topic in general works for me.
I think with the media saturation, the smog and haze that we're kind of building off of, I can really see society at large hiding an authenticity. Like if we're thinking about pseudo near future, we have this internet persona of positivity that we hide behind, and so either that vulnerability or that authenticity would be something that we're missing.
I'm kind of interested in this idea, which is also close to reality, but just that like that this is a world in which conformity is enforced in terms of like being able to get ahead, and maybe that's money wise or just society wise, and so authenticity is definitely something that comes as like you gotta cut that down. And then so conformity or money or work might be something that shapes the dreams, that it's like what is expected of you is that you will be like everyone else, and then you'll be able to like have a job and do the things that you need to do to live and watch the news and die.
And then if you are going to be a weirdo or different or whatever, you can leave that at home, but that's not part of public life.
Right.
So yeah, do you want to do the direct pairing of conformity and authenticity on these two lists? Or do you think it's more interesting to, like you mentioned, like money or work as being another way to get at that same idea?
Well, it says we can choose one or two, so I think definitely conformity.
Okay.
Yeah.
If that works for everyone
think
else,
conformity plays. I'd like to see maybe a spin on surveillance.
Like is this a surveillance society? Like you're always being watched.
And this can be like, cameras and people scraping your personal data and all this kind of stuff, or it can be the more insidious and delightful kind that we all engage in between each other, between individuals as peers, the way that we surveil and police each other's behaviors and stuff like that. It can be any and or all of those ideas, if we want to go into that.
Yeah.
Surveillance?
Yeah.
Surveillance and conformity are a really scary pair. It's like,
yeah,
we need you to be the same as everyone else, and we're watching. We will know when you are not.
We're making sure that you are.
Yeah, that feels very real also.
Yeah, I'm ready for this game.
Yeah.
I think to add to what we hide, I think I'd like to add either emotions or vulnerability. I think that would be interesting for us.
I think emotions would be really good, but vulnerability also sounds really good too.
Yeah, does anyone have any strong feelings between those two?
They both express similar things to me, so I think emotions, just as a broad expectation, would be a little easier.
Okay.
Yeah.
Great. So the things that shape our dreams are surveillance and conformity, and the things that we hide from others are our emotions and our authentic selves. Great. This is a very functional society we're creating.
Yeah.
This is fine.
We're just trying to shatter the barrier. That's all. That's no big deal.
Yeah, and then like something is going to break the barrier between people's dreams and reality, and all this stuff is going to spill out. There difference and what variability will be revealed, and everything will fucking
Great.
explode. Yeah.
Yeah.
This is fine.
So now we can talk about the protagonist, which is you all. So we who breach the barrier of dreams, why do we wander in others' dreams? And the options here are to uncover truths that others ignore, to help those whom society has forsaken, to escape the tedium of our day-to-day lives, to understand our waking lives, to banish the ghosts of our past, or to experience real intimacy.
I like the last one a lot.
I do too.
Yeah, plays right into what we're selecting here.
We just want to feel.
Right, and so it's like an environment where it's actually safe to express and experience emotion and to be close to people, but then you wake up and you don't know who it was or where you had wandered to or whatever else. That feels very lonely to me in a very poignant way. Well, great. Since everyone just jumped on that, I'm happy to let's just underline it and move on. Sounds great. So the dream is the only place that we feel we can experience real intimacy, and to experience it with others, we wander out of our own dreams and into that of other people. Cool. So now we're at the top of the next column here, and we're going to talk about what role do you play. And so each protagonist is going to choose one or two from this list, and these are ways to kind of signal your position or your relationship to the other characters within the group. And so the options here are forbidden lover, best friend, reformed conspirator, disillusioned cynic, tragic genius, weary caretaker, object of desire, oracle of the dream, or target of the conspiracy. And then everyone's going to pick one or two of these that kind of inform who their character is and how they relate to the others. And so that may be that, like, I'm like, cool, I'm picking best friend and forbidden lover. I'm going to point both of those at the same person who wants to be my forbidden love / best friend. Or it could be like point those in different directions or whatever the case may be. And then once everyone's chosen those, that's when we're going to go and select character playbooks. And the idea is that you pick a playbook that reflects those choices that you made.
Okay, so these roles aren't based off our characters, they're based off of other characters that we perceive, or? So
they're for your character, but they're always going to kind of involve a little bit of a relationship with either the world or with one of the other characters.
Okay.
And so just kind of mix and match them to make a little person that is interesting for you.
Let's make a human.
And there can be overlap. Like, everyone can be a forbidden lover if they want. I really have no...
We have a big old love triangle going on.
Lover.
I have no beef with that. That's fine. So there can be overlap. But, it's good to have a bit of a mix of these as well.
So when it says reformed conspirator, it means like someone who used to be a part of the literal conspiracy that we've talked about.
Yes.
Does that sound appealing to you? Okay.
Yeah, it does.
The reformed artist. Interesting.
Yeah, I used to be an artist, but I got better.
I realized I needed to move on in my life. Oh, that sounds really too real.
Yeah, art school dropout.
Had to get a job. Take care of my family. Oh man. Okay. I like to think I'm a reformed cynic, so playing a disillusioned cynic would be interesting to me.
Yeah, you have all of the experience necessary to embody the role very authentically, but you're not so emotionally like in it that it's going to be too much, right?
And then like pairing that with probably a best friend situation.
That's always a good pair too, right? There's some little ray of hope or sunshine for this character who otherwise is very...
Yeah.
I was also looking at best friend, and I don't know, maybe...
You want to be best friends, Morgan?
Yeah, let's be best friends. And then I think I don't know, I was always eyeballing the Oracle of the Dream.
Hell yeah. Hell yeah, we need an Oracle.
Maybe, we'll see.
Seems like a good power move.
I'm intrigued.
Yeah.
Did you want to do a second one, Jory, or?
I don't know. I feel like I get a lot from what could be a reformed conspirator.
But are you also a tragic genius?
Our forbidden lover.
Oh, we don't have a forbidden lover yet.
I know, right?
I kind of do like that too, because it's like I came from this other world, so maybe there's something forbidden here. Yeah. Okay, I'll do that.
Okay, so we have a forbidden lover and former conspirator, a disillusioned cynic and best friend, and a best friend and oracle of the dream.
Yeah.
Okay, great.
Can my forbidden love be something in the dream? Like it's totally a dream.
Get as weird
thing?
as you want with it.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah.
I mean, given that we just established, right, that like that's where all of you go to pursue like real intimacy, it totally makes sense that you would have fallen in love with someone or something in the dream.
Great.
And maybe you're not even sure which it is.
Back.
Cool. So there are 7 different character playbooks in this game. There's the Unlikely Hero, the Time Traveler, the Enigma, the Stranger, the Harmony, and I almost did them all from memory, but then I didn't. But there are 7 of them, I promise. And at this point, we are going to pick. There's also the Outsider. There we go.
Did you say Guardian?
Guardian as well. Damn, maybe I'm just very wrong and bad. Or at least, maybe I was bad at counting and bad at remembering them. Maybe that's what happened, because I thought I was at 6, but apparently I was only at 5. And so I can just go through each of the playbooks and give a quick high-level description, if that would be helpful for folks. And then we can kind of go in and pick. Again, with these, there's the option that there can be overlap if we want to have, like, everyone be the Enigma, so you're all kind of like masked superhero-style characters who don't know each other's secret identities. That's fine, or we can be a kind of spread or an array of them. Whichever one appeals to you and you think fits is the correct choice. And so I will go through the list. So first off is the Enigma, who I just mentioned, and their whole shtick is that they lead a dual life. So their mundane self and their kind of magical self. No one knows that those two are the same person. Your mundane self is friends with all the protagonists, and then they're like, cool, we're going on an adventure, and you're like, that's nice, guys, bye, have fun, good luck. And then you show up as, fancy so-and-so who helps them from the shadows
like
and appears in the right
Sailor
moment.
V from like before she became Sailor Venus, but like
or Tuxedo Mask.
Tuxedo Man, yeah.
And so the Enigma does things like have a cool mask that you get to describe and that like hides your identity. You are very aloof and secretive. You can deliver a monologue without being interrupted. Cool stuff like that. And they're when they fall into eclipse, which is kind of like a dark side to their character, it's all about whether or not they can kind of live up to the expectations or the promise of their cool secret identity. They're very melodramatic, for sure. And then there is the Stranger. And the Stranger has a different relationship to emotion than the other characters. And so they can't hang out with their friends in the same way that like does cool mechanical stuff. They're much too serious and focused for that kind of thing. They're very good at seeing what's going on and understanding what's going on, but not very good at like expressing their feelings. They are better at relating to things that aren't people than to other people. They get cool magical powers that let them like change the environment or, talk to objects, stuff like that. And their dark side is about how hard it is to reach across the gap and engage with people, and that they shouldn't bother, and that they should instead try to do impossible things. So they're fun if you are interested in playing a character who has like a really complicated relationship to emotion in general, which could be pretty fitting given the stuff we've described. There are a bunch of good hooks for a Stranger in this one. There is the Time Traveler, and the time traveler has traveled through time in some direction or other, whether that's forward, back, or laterally, to change another protagonist's fate. So they have a particular thing that they know is going to happen to someone else that they're here to change. They are really focused on one other character, and they are kind of a nosy and meddlesome, but also friend kind of character. You know, everyone has a friend like that, right? They have cool magical powers around time travel, of course. My favorite being that when something really bad happens to someone, you can just abandon this timeline in favor of one where that doesn't happen, but then some detail of your relationship with that person changes, and they get to kind of define that. So there's a very melancholy vibe to it. This playbook is based on Madoka in a really big way. I won't spoil.
Yeah, I was gonna say, I'm like, bruh.
But it's very much that relationship. But also, like, Sailor Moon has a time traveling character in that her daughter comes back in time and hangs out with her. You know, and it's weird. And then their dark side is
from a show from the 1990s.
I will spoil Sailor Moon. That is the statute of limitations is off. The time traveler's dark side is about abandoning this idea of changing fate and instead embracing it and acting really like foolishly and heedlessly of consequence. There is the Harmony, who is an embodied relationship. So they are two people whose love has bound them into a single form and identity. So I'm going to spoil Steven Universe. Garnet from Steven Universe is this playbook. And so they're all about like using their voice and their relationships with others. They kind of can be positioned as like a leader or like a cheerleader, depending on how you want to do that. You can become a giant woman, so that's pretty cool. And your dark side is about there being a fracture within your relationship or your relationship going sour in some way, and that throwing off your whole deal, and that you need like other people to kind of intervene and help you fix your relationship before you can be whole and functional again. There's the Guardian, who lives by a code, and I will just read this move because it's fun and pretty definitive for the character. So you live by a code. Your code forgives all but one of the following: violence, lying, admitting fault, or asking for help. And you get XP if you don't violate your code, or if no one breaks your code, then the whole crew gets XP. But basically you are someone who has a really strong kind of sense of what is right, even as that exists in conflict with the other people that you're trying to get along with and protect. And so there's a tension kind of internally to the character about that. And their magical power stuff is mostly about protecting and supporting other people. And their dark side involves protecting people out the window and just going off and punching stuff because you're mad, basically. It's good fun. There's the outsider who has a rival and is kind of like the edgy playbook. So there's one character that is your rival, and you have a bunch of stuff that interacts around like what your rival is doing or about trying to outdo or outshine your rival. And this can be a two-way rivalry where it's like, yeah, we hate each other, and it's, you know, we're always trying to do better. Or it can be a one-sided rivalry where it's like, I really hate that guy, and they're like, who? I don't know her.
Like, what did I do?
What are you? Yeah.
And
there's a question in the chat.
Yeah, I was going to point that out.
Asking if the Harmony can be an embodiment of the relationship between two protagonists.
It's getting a little abstract, but maybe. That would be very complicated to play because you're like two other people who are walking around doing stuff, and then there's you. But I mean, yeah, cool, go for it. The idea is mostly that you're like a separate person still.
When two becomes one, right?
That's kind of the idea, yeah. But then and then add a third because your duality can then be in a relationship with someone else. So there's a whole like every relationship you have is a polycule thing going on with the Harmony, which is fun and complicated. But to come back to the outsider, they're really like direct and forceful. They don't want to like sit around or wait for things or get along with people. They just want to like make stuff happen. And their dark side is about how they're like a lost and dark soul who is irredeemable and who loses faith in their own ability to like be good or be loved, etc. So if you want to be really edgy, that's the one for you. And then the last but not least is the unlikely hero, who is not quite a magical girl yet. The whole deal with the unlikely hero is that you don't have the cool magic powers quite yet, and it's about your kind of journey of discovery or of taking on your kind of heroic destiny. And so you don't have any magical abilities, and you're kind of just this like cheerleader-y kind of character in the sense of like Steven Universe is a unlikely hero. Perfect example where Steven doesn't have his cool gem powers yet, but we get to watch him kind of grow and change and take that
Super
on.
anime. If I
Yes.
try hard enough, I can unlock my powers.
Right. There are endless examples of this trope.
Yeah.
And their dark side is about being unworthy of that destiny or the expectations of others. And so that's the list. That's all 7 of them. The unlikely hero, the outsider, the guardian, the harmony, the time traveler, the stranger, the enigma. Boom. Does anything jump out to anyone? Any particular archetype that they're excited about?
I'm kind of curious about your recommendation based on the attributes that we picked.
Right, of
At
like
least for me.
forbidden lover and reformed conspirator. Am I remembering correctly?
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah.
Gosh, yeah, like if you want to go with that angle that you mentioned of like you're in love with something out in the dream, like you could be the stranger, and it could be about like you finally finding something that you can relate to, but not even really knowing what it is, and there's a whole... That's a really good metaphor for queerness if I ever heard one, right? Of like, so it could be about that like struggle of understanding your own desire and your own heart. The stranger would be a good way to play into that. You could be a harmony, where like that thing or whatever person that you're in love with out there is part of you now, but maybe is still a little bit strange to you, and there's some kind of internal ambiguity that you're wrestling with from that other lens of like it's a relationship more directly, that like lives inside you. That could be a cool way to do it. If you want to have your forbidden lover be one of the other characters, then I think time traveler or outsider would be a fun way to do that, where like your person you're in love with can be your rival, and it can be one of those more kind of fraught or complicated relationships where it's like, I want you to notice me, which means I have to do better than you at everything all the time. That whole thing. So those
I
are...
don't know what other people want before I make my choice.
Sure. I think I was leaning towards either... Damn. I keep reading them and I'm like, oh no, you're right. I could play it so many different ways.
One last
Morgan?
suggestion that occurred to me, Jory, is you could be the guardian and your code could be about your former life as a conspirator. So you could still be carrying a bunch of stuff with you of like your values persist or have outlived the place where you learned them. That would be another interesting angle to take. But sorry, Jess, I didn't mean to cut you off.
No worries. I was just gonna ask. I'm like, Morgan, what are you saying for you? Because right now all I see is a very sweet being out of you.
That's what I was actually looking at the unlucky hero or the harmony.
Yeah.
Just to fit those, because I don't think like time traveler focuses too much on one person. I don't think this character's gonna be Enigma or a stranger. Wait, no, that's not the right one. No, rival. No, wait, hold on.
The outsider is the one with the rival. Yeah.
Yeah, I don't see this character as like one of those playbooks.
For sure.
Yeah, positioning yourself as both the oracle of the dream and the unlikely hero is really interesting because it's like there is this big heavy duty thing that your character is supposed to be taking on, but that maybe you're struggling with.
Kind of like Steven, it's like the unlucky hero because like he's a gem and a a human, and like having that's a big like horrible thing.
Mm-hmm.
I don't know,
Right.
kind of like having like the mix between two worlds sort of situation going on, where it's like the unlikely hero.
Yeah, like you're straddling the dreaming world and the waking world or something, and it makes
Yeah.
you...
So liminal. I like it.
It's my life.
Yeah.
Mood.
Yeah.
Big mood. Being cynical, I was thinking time traveler.
That's definitely a big angle, right? Of like, I have seen what's going to happen, or
Yeah.
I know how this is going to go. It's going to go badly. Only I know the way to fix it.
Mm-hmm.
It's definitely a good vibe. And yeah, like I think I at least nodded to it. However, we want to define time travel, right? Like, if that's that you have like seen the future, but not traveled to it or from it, that's fine. Or if it's like I'm from the past, or I'm from the future, or I'm from another timeline, or whatever. Any of those are fair game. However we want to characterize it, totally up to you.
Sure. And I'm not beholden to it because, yeah, depending on what Dory wants, I could spin it a different way as well.
Yeah, like there are so many different ways we could assemble this little crew of people together. I think there's
Yeah.
lots of options.
I'm thinking about the Enigma in terms of like maybe the artist cabal that is in charge of this conspiracy. Like I've left them, but they can't know, and so when I'm in the dream world, I have to be
You have to
masked,
disguise
and
yourself. Yeah.
that means that also my forbidden love doesn't know that it's me when I'm there, and so
Oh.
there's an interesting thing going on there.
Ooh.
Yeah, that could be really good too. Are you excited about being a melodramatic, cape-wearing, masked person? Because that's pretty
I
key. If you're not
mean,
into that, then the Enigma's not
yeah.
for you. But
Yeah,
yeah, okay.
yeah, I'm excited about it. It's just it's just real life.
Great.
I
Yeah.
wore a giant cat head to a screening of Cats, so
Well, Jellicles can, and Jellicles do.
and they
Jellicles
do,
and
and
Jellicles
they
can.
do.
Okay, so we have an Enigma in this corner. An Enigma. Anyone else feel like locking in?
Unlikely hero. I thought I said that. I'm sorry.
It's beautiful.
Great.
Yeah.
No, I think
I
that's a
love
really
it.
good one.
Okay. And yeah, I think I want to toy around with the time traveling.
Cool. Well, great. And yeah, your position as best friend is like very good fit for that, right? This idea of like, I really care about this person, and so I have to take care of them, whether they know it or like it or not.
Love me or hate me.
I am here for you.
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay, great. So now we can move back to questionnaires. We don't need to worry about filling out playbooks yet. So, now that we have this collection of characters, we need to decide how do we pass our days. So this is like what our day-to-day lives look like. And the options here are mind-numbing repetition, boredom and despair, isolation and detachment, grueling, dirty work, fruitless labor, or morally compromising jobs.
Damn.
And of course, my instinct is, can I just underline all of them?
Yeah, I mean, they all bleed into each other. So is this kind of like a collectively by default, this is how we pass our days?
Yeah, so the idea is that we have kind of a shared obligation amongst all the characters. So, like, you all have a shitty, mind-numbing day job, or you're all sewer cleaning technicians, or whatever, right? Like, whatever we decide to spin out of these details, the idea is that we kind of all share it in some way or another. We're all kind of the same, like, profession or status, or we're all going to school together or whatever, right? Like, and within that we can differentiate, but there's a shared thing that we all do. And then when we get into playing the game, this will come up in what's called the obligation phase, which the kind of ordering of the game's phases, there's obligation and then downtime and then like a mission where you go into the dream and do cool superhero stuff. But those first two of obligation and downtime, that's the stuff you do day to day where the world craps on you and oppresses you and, you know, stresses you out. And then downtime is about the things you do when you're free of that and have your own kind of, you know, you're at your leisure or whatever to go do the things you want to do. Obligation is very short, but it's just a place where we show kind of why the world is something that needs changing and the ways in which it affects your characters. And so I guess what would be fruitful at this stage to talk about or to remind ourselves of is our choices around like the things that shape our dreams and that we hide from others, right? That our society is one that features a great deal of surveillance and conformity, that we are saturated with media, that the world is smoggy and hazy, and that in the pursuit of all these things, we are not supposed to reveal our authentic selves or our emotions.
Morally compromising jobs.
I keep reading it over and over again, and that's the one I keep drawing back to. Like, no, there's got to be a better one in here. I'm like, no.
That's an obvious one. I'm not beholden to it, but like that's where all of our other choices have lent towards. But I mean, I'm also curious about like fruitless labor, because everyone would, under a surveillance kind of situation, we're expected to stay in line, but then the kind of labor we're doing feels meaningless, you know.
Yeah, that one
usual.
In this context to me kind of screams like presenteeism, right? Like you're always at your desk, you're always doing something, even if it's totally fucking useless. It's that whole thing of just like appearing to work is the most important thing you do at your job.
Yeah, like you're just at your desk and you have Word doc open and you're just like typing away, and it just
type a line, delete the line, type a line, delete the line. So that could be
awful.
an angle we take with fruitless labor, certainly.
Are we adults?
So I think generally yes with this one. The characters should at least be old enough where if we see them engaging in intimacy with one another or other people, that's not squicky.
Creepy.
Yeah. So whatever the bar needs to be for us. Because, that's one thing that I should maybe mention is that, like, desire is a big theme in this one. And so in downtime, normally you would have an action you can do where you, like, hang out with your friends and have, like, do fun things. In this one, you share intimacy with people as the kind of replacement for that, which we can get into the details of how it works later, but the idea being that this playset cares about those moments of intimacy, whether they're like physical intimacy or emotional intimacy or whatever, more so than it cares about like, cool, your characters go and like hang out and like, why is that fun? We care about why is that intimate or exposing a part of yourself, in what ways are you vulnerable, those kinds of things. That's what this playset digs into. So right. Yeah, if you want your character to do sexy stuff and they're a kid, I'm going to get really squicked out and not be into it. Yeah. So adults, or at least like older teens. It's like the Monster Hearts rule, right? Like we're all at least whatever age, and we just kind of hand wave some stuff. Nothing that's going to get my Twitch channel banned, that kind of thing. Please.
What did you have in mind with when you got excited about morally compromising jobs? Because I kind of don't know exactly what that would mean for me.
Yeah, you have a bit of a different background. So I think in our heart of hearts, in true magical girl anime fashion, we always have a greater good desire. And I don't think our society is lending us to express that. So when I think morally compromising jobs, I think like, we're all working for the biggest surveillance company, organizing data, doing all those things, seeing people's lives on paper and not being able to connect with those people.
Right. Or also the media side, right?
Yeah.
That's one of our other things. Yeah, I like it.
Or like we're like spinsters almost in a way of media itself. No, that's
right.
probably taking it too far.
Well, I think
you want us to be pundits? Ooh.
Well, media can mean a lot of things.
I don't want to be the gun girl.
Oh God.
Oh no, I forgot about her until you brought her.
Like,
I feel like
she was so close.
In a way, makes sense for my character at least to be like an artist or someone who's artistically minded, and the only job is in the media.
Yeah.
Creating this like crap that everyone consumes all the time. So I like that idea.
Be honest with us, are you creating those cute little life hack videos that don't actually work? Is that
Yeah,
your fault?
the like recipes that don't make any sense at all.
No, the ones just they're there for clickbait and getting money.
Yeah, this is how you can improve your life. And it's just like, that doesn't help my life at all.
That one media that we all know about that we don't want to say its name but it's everywhere and it covers all the subjects and you're like, where's the okay. Yeah. I really like that actually.
Yeah, I dig it.
And so
we're everywhere and anywhere.
Morally compromising jobs.
We're putting this as morally compromising jobs, and so the three of you are in some way part of the like mass media establishment,
which maybe is connected to the surveillance establishment.
Of course.
Let's be real. Of course it is.
Like as tightly as they can. Yeah. Cool. And so, Jory, you had mentioned being like in this sort of pseudo influencer role.
Yeah, I was thinking like content creator, but
okay,
I also like the idea of influencer. So like I, as a person in this world, am well known. Like people know who I am, which is another reason why I have to be masked.
Yeah.
In the dream world.
Because your personal brand is too strong.
Oh man, that's beautiful.
Does anyone else have a sense of like the specific thing for their character, like your specific role within that?
I think I do the bullshit like astrology stuff.
Oh, good.
You're the face of the Zap food.
Zap
but
food?
The BuzzFeed. I don't know.
Right, like our in-universe equivalent where we're safe from libel or copyright strikes.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's like, oh yes, Mercury's in Pisces right now. It's doing a retrograde. That means you're feeling all the sadness, and we're here for you.
Just like last week, Mercury's still in retrograde, just like it is every week.
Yeah.
Okay,
That's
and so
sick.
As the kind of capstone to this one, where we've chosen morally compromising jobs, and how we pass our days, there's another question here of how does the world see us if it notices us at all? And so for like people like you as a category, how does the world kind of understand that? It sounds like for Jory's character, you're like you have a little bit of celebrity going on with you, and so you're seen as like an aspirational figure, like people want to be like you or do the things that you do.
Yeah. So I got into this because it's kind of creative, but the ideal in this world is conformity. So like I'm somehow, my lifestyle brand is like, I wear a suit. Look at me, I go to work. Isn't it great?
It's just like, oh, I wear a red tie, and everyone's like, oh, a red tie. Wow.
Bold.
So that's the kind of cutting edge stuff.
Too. It's totally in, like.
Yeah. Yeah, and just like the best ideal of the blandest life possible.
Sure.
Oof.
Like almost like a bland trend setter.
Yeah.
If you're wearing pinstripes, everyone adjusts to pinstripes.
It's like, yeah, within this very narrow set of constraints, you are at the forefront of this trend setting. I like that too, because to me what that says is like people see you, but mostly they put their own face in front of over yours, right? Like you're there as something for them to kind of want to become or to replace you with themselves. Yeah.
I have a question. Are you like Instagram level like influencer or like celebrity like Hollywood influencer?
Do we think we have Hollywood?
Is there a range like that, or is it just like one and done? Like, oh, you're a face, therefore like that's it.
I don't feel strongly one way or another about there being like the big famous versus little famous distinction. I could roll with it or not. I don't really mind.
I feel like based off the kind of conformity theme, I feel like everyone gets filtered based off of terrible personality tests and stuff into these jobs. So do we have a Hollywood? That was a good question.
Like it doesn't have to be Hollywood per se, but like, is there like a range of popularity, like a cult
what
movie
makes
versus...
celebrity here
Yeah.
in society?
Asking the hard questions now.
Yeah.
Right.
I feel like, I don't know, you being the face is pretty definitive of celebrity. So maybe we don't have as much Hollywood media content.
It's
But
like
we
more
have.
distributed.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Or like, what if all of media now, rather than having films and everything, is more like life hack, weird little videos like that?
Yeah,
So we have a
that's
lot of weird
what I'm
little
thinking.
videos.
It's just
and photos,
BuzzFeed 24/7. We don't even know what Hollywood is. It's just...
Yeah, there's been this
Yeah.
like smoothing out of the media establishment to be incredibly diffuse.
Yeah.
That sounds really fun in terms of
Yeah.
like Jess was saying, building on those themes of like conformity. No one's allowed to be that different as to be super famous. It's like
Smoothening.
yeah.
The smoothing.
And so then with Jory being kind of on stage, is everyone else like backstage? Are y'all kind of unseen people as far as this kind of stuff goes?
Like I said, I do the horoscopes.
Okay, yeah, so you're...
Probably like I do the blogging horoscopes or something. Like, this is what you get sent into your email every single day because you're like, oh god, these emails keep coming through, but I can't stop clicking them.
Right, so it's less about like your personal... You don't have like the personal brand thing going, but you are
I'm a part of the
in
company.
people's lives. Yeah.
I think I work like the darkest corner of security. Like, I don't see myself being a face, especially if I'm traveling time. I think it's definitely me taking the back end of where the traffic is going, who's clicking on Jory's face versus who all is plugging in for their very true and very accurate astrological fortunes. You know, like I'm collecting the data of the people that's
so
in our team.
The other two are on the media end of things, and you're in the surveillance state, big time.
Mhm.
Love it.
Cool.
Oh.
Great.
Are you the man in the surveillance state? Like, not the man, but like the man with capitalizations and all that?
I think I'm close to the man, but I really like it does, it's not fun for me. I don't like it. I like knowing things, but I think at what cost?
Yeah, like that makes sense with your character being the time traveler who is a bit of a meddler in some way, that like the power of surveillance is appealing to you, even if it's gross and squicky.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. Well, great. So now we can talk about the dream. So the dream is a personal reflection. Let's do this and then take a break, I think, by the way.
Cool.
The dream is a personal reflection of the waking world. What is the dream to you? How do you know when we are in the dream? How do we navigate the dream? And what unconscious tell accompanies each of us throughout the dream? So we have a few more kind of open-ended questions that we're going to answer here. So how do we know when we are in the dream? In this personal reflection of the waking world.
Do we always know when we're in the dream? Like walking into Tartarus, clock strikes midnight kind of situation, or...
I don't want to play around with the like, oh, this was actually a
Yeah,
dream
okay,
the whole
good.
time. Or
Cool.
like, actually,
Great.
you were at work this whole time. Those kinds of things.
Excellent.
I don't want to pull the
Perfect.
rug out from under anyone. I don't think that's fun. I don't think that's fun or interesting. So we do know. And like the dream is where magic stuff happens. And then the mundane world is totally like distinct from that. You can't do the cool superheroic stuff. So yeah,
I
like...
think there's... Oops, sorry.
Sorry, I keep...
No, I'm just like blabbering. I'm like, I think there may be like a visual difference where like we have the smoke and the haze and everything's just a little like dimmer in the real world. But when you get to the dream world, it's just like Joseph and the technoconic.
Technicolor.
Technicolor.
Yeah, that word. It's just vibrant and bright and Willy Wonka and like.
And I think we can like see the stars and the sun, and maybe I don't know if like we can even breathe easier. That's probably more subliminal for us, but like being able to see the sky, it's probably like the first cue to be
Can I put a twist on that where when you're in the dream it's that you don't have to breathe and that's a relief? Because the world is so like, if it's so choked in smoke that we like can't see the sun, then like when you're asleep and dreaming you don't necessarily have to like experience breathing the gross air, and that's like an actually nice thing.
Very cool.
Or you experience for the first time like breathing in fresh air.
Yeah, like there's that clarity to it, or like you feel like I almost imagine like the air feels soupy normally, and in the dream you like don't notice it in that way.
It's like the crisp mountain air or something like that.
I like the idea of like a rain coming in, like a very clean like sun rain coming in,
and having the sense of like just rain smells.
I like this idea
to
too.
kind of
like,
signify
incongruous weather, like you say, like it's sunny and rainy at the same time, and both are really nice. There's like this lushness of sensation that exists in the dream. That sounds great.
Just like a visceral experience of the natural. Like all of these are that in terms of being able to see the sky and experience weather and all of this. Like normally it's just gray. It's all gray all the time.
And all input is kind of falsified or fake, and then you go into the dream and you actually get these authentic feeling experiences.
Yeah.
Great. That's lots to run with. So then the next question we have is, how do we navigate the dream? Because y'all are able to, like, cool, you're asleep, you're dreaming, and then you can be like, I'm going to go to so-and-so's dream, or like to another dream somewhere, and you can leave your own kind of bubble of dream and go into someone else's. How do you reckon we do that?
I mean, this is a little very persona-y, but like, because screens are like so everywhere in our world, we can assume that they will also show up in people's dreams. So we can like screen hop through dreams. We just have to like find a phone or a computer or a TV.
Yeah, it's very The Matrix as well, right? That like there's certain kind of hard lines or whatever that you can there's some tell you can kind of recognize, like, oh, that TV can like get me somewhere, whereas that other TV is just a TV, whatever. I definitely
like an old rotary phone where we just pick it up and just dial our friend's phone number and just sits. I was thinking that.
I like the idea of the parallel of like us being so glued to our media and our screens that what do those screens look like in the dream world? Are they puddles? Are they bodies of water?
Yeah, like what level of abstraction can they function at?
But I do like the concept of the Persona-esque, like jumping into a screen of sorts.
Yeah, I think it can, like the metaphor can vary a little bit, but there are these kind of, like screens that show up in various ways. Like you say, there might be the reflection in a puddle, they might be a literal TV, depending on kind of the place that we're in, but then that some of them can act as like a ley line or a channel or a conduit or whatever to another person's dream. And that most people can't tell the difference or don't know how to use them. Great.
Yeah.
That's a fun metaphor. I like that. And so lastly, what unconscious tell accompanies each of us throughout the dream? So this is like a thing that will like show up on you when you're in the dream world, and like is kind of part of how you also can always know. Like, oh, when I'm in the dream world, my footsteps are look like stars.
Whoa.
It can be any old thing, but I think it should just be kind of somewhat consistent between the characters. Like pick a type of thing that is then maybe you each have your own spin on.
Okay.
Is usually nice.
I vote out not farting rainbows.
Okay, no one's gonna fart rainbows. We're all agreed.
Cross that off the list I was writing.
Things that have come up in the past for this, just as if that's going to be helpful, I can list some. So like one I think was that everything people touched would like patina or corrode or rust a little bit, or like its surface quality would change. So like it would look like something was oxidized copper when they touched it, stuff like that. I think another was about like leaving trails of like feathers or butterflies or other stuff kind of behind them.
I was thinking something along that line, like an aura-esque sort of like thing. But...
Fine, we can fart rainbows.
You know, you're not farting a rainbow, but there is this kind of, it's hanging about you a bit like a, you know, there's a smell to it and some color. It's not a fart, I promise. It's not a fart.
I was thinking of kind of like not that there's like plants that sprout up behind us everywhere we walk, but there are like plants that kind of grow after we've been somewhere.
Like a little bit later, there will be this sign that you were
maybe.
there. Because yeah, I kind of like these as like a way of knowing. Like once you can recognize these tells, you could, someone else could see it and be like, oh, so and so was here recently, or because then other people who can do this dream traveling thing presumably have different tells as well that they leave behind, and that's something I can use to be like, oh yes, the mysterious bad person was here because there's this kind of flower growing or whatever. That could be fun.
Yeah, for sure. I like that. I like growing plants, so yay.
And maybe they're like incongruous with the like with whatever's going on in the place that you're in, because the idea is like you're bringing something from your dream and kind of leaving it behind in this other person's dream. So the plants like don't quite fit for the biome or the scene.
I think it's kind of interesting if like whatever it is like it's the plant that like it's a snake plant that grows whenever I'm somewhere, and sometimes it may be appropriate and then people won't be able to know.
Right,
They'll
and they
just be
won't
like,
see.
Yeah.
Yep.
It's like your personality resonating with the dream space. Yeah.
Cool. Does that jive for everyone? Can everyone kind of imagine their own like spin on that?
I just looked at what I wanted, and I'm happy that my two favorite flowers are on here, so that makes me super excited.
Well, great. And this is something we can talk about like later in play. We don't have to get super into the details of. Okay, so let's take a break because we've been going at this for a while. And then when we come back, we can start talking about avatars, which are cool and kind of the most involved part of this. So it's best to chill out for a bit. So we'll say like 10 minutes, and then we'll be back. So just hang tight, chat, and all of our lovely viewers.
sounds good.
Yeah.
Thanks for being here.